Welcome to the Emotional Fingerprint of an Adoptee. I'm Karen Chaston.
And I'm Kim Rankin.
How are we today, Kim?
Well,
And what are we talking about?
today we're talking about the wounded inner child, and it's the fourth element that makes up the emotional fingerprint of an adoptee.
And over the past 3 episodes, we explored the first three, which is the emotional umbilical cord, limbic resonance, and the primal wound. And the primal wound is the first fracture in an adoptee's emotional world, shaping how they experience connection, identity, and belonging. And it doesn't remain static, it evolves as they grow. And it all depends on the way that they have been nurtured, understood, the awareness, and that it it seeps into and it takes over in many cases their thoughts, emotions, and their sense of self, which is how the inner child emerges. And as their nurture, depending on that, it can become a wounded inner child or a healthy inner child, depending on how their adoptive parents, their caregivers really delve into the wounds of early separation.
And I think during the closed adoption era, the awareness and knowledge wasn't there. So a lot of adoptees, like myself, are only really unpacking the wounds and of maternal separation as adults.
Yes. And obviously, through that early separation, abandonment, identity issues, rejection, grief, and loss are all things that are very active within an adoptee. And when we look at the wounded in a child, I I visualize it as, do you remember Indiana Jones movie? I think it was the fourth one when Sean Connery was in it. And they were in Petra, which is in Jordan, which is this beautiful building. And as they went through all of the, I guess, obstacles to get them, what their mission was to gain the chalice, the cup of Christ, the Holy Grail. So as they got through all these challenges and they went into this room, there was a knight standing there, and the knight looked like he was 1,000 years old, and he was probably more than that. So he looked really old and he looked really tired, and he's going, "Oh, you're finally here. I've been holding this, I've been guarding this. I have been here, like waiting for you to arrive so I can hand this over to you." And I'm just getting shivers telling you, like, just bringing in this analogy. And that's what I feel an inner child is in many ways. And we all have an inner child. It's not just adoptees, it's everyone. And it all comes back to what happened to us in those foundational years, from conception all the way to through until we're about a teenager, and slightly even after that. But it's mainly that first 10, 12, 13 years. And there are wounds that are created through misunderstandings, through things that are said to us that were never really, like, the person who said it wasn't their intention. They don't understand how these wounds can come about. So that's how I look at, like, it's guarding these treasures, and they've taken on so you can live your life. They're taking on all the pain. They're closely guarding it within you. It's like a Pandora's box. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and can you visualize it?
Yeah.
I know. That's what I was hoping you'd say. And I hope you can visualize it as well. And that's what I feel like, they're guarding you so much, protecting you so that you can go and show up in the world. Because a lot of the times I feel that many adoptees are not going to show up. And because this trauma happened pre-verbal, they find it a little bit hard to put it into words and to share.
Well, I think because as a child for myself, there were no words or the exploration about the experience was never spoken about.
Yeah.
So babies from that era were looked at as blank slates. And so we internalized a lot of what was going on. And so the wounded inner child took it all on.
Yes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, as we did in the past 3 episodes, we're going to now share an excerpt from our lesson 2, which is from adoption to 6 years, where we delve into the inner garden of an adoptee, where these 4 elements live in this garden. And as we know, the more we tend to the foundations of a garden and pull out the weeds and everything, the garden will flourish. So here is this excerpt. I'm finding that hard to say, this excerpt, and we'll be back shortly. The wounded inner child and its emotional journey. The inner child represents the emotional core of who we are, formed through the experiences and perceptions of our earliest years. For adoptees, this inner child often carries the unresolved emotions of separation, rejection, and the silent grief that begins at birth. Over time, these unprocessed emotions are internalized, creating a wounded inner child, a part of the self that holds onto the pain, confusion, and unmet needs from these critical developmental stages. When adoptive parents understand the possibility of their child's early experiences creating a wounded inner child, it opens the doors to deeper empathy and understanding. One essential aspect of this is recognizing the importance of connection with their biological roots. Just as in separated families, where children often benefit when both parents maintain contact and remain present in their lives, adoptees can also thrive when meaningful connections with both their adoptive and biological families are nurtured. These connections don't diminish the role of adoptive parents. Rather, they enrich the adoptee's sense of identity and belonging. Such understanding allows adoptive parents to support their child in navigating the complexities of their emotional journey while fostering a secure foundation for growth. During these early years, the wounded inner child emerges as adoptees navigate the profound emotional impact of their experiences. The toddler years bring the first stirrings of a sense of loss and separation, even if these feelings remain unspoken. By the preschool years, as adoptees begin to grapple with questions of belonging and identity, the inner child internalizes these struggles, further shaping their emotional landscape. If the wounded inner child is not nurtured and supported during this time, these unresolved emotions and internalized struggles can compound as the adoptee grows. Left unaddressed, these emotional wounds can manifest in adulthood as deeper patterns of disconnection, rumination, and difficulties with trust and self-worth. Healing the wounded inner child as an adult becomes a much harder and longer process, as these patterns are often deeply entrenched by them. Understanding the wounded inner child is key to unlocking an adoptee's path to healing and self-discovery. When parents, caregivers, and adoptees themselves recognize this part of the self, it becomes possible to provide the care, empathy, and support needed to nurture the inner child back to wholeness. By embracing this perspective, we can deepen our understanding of the emotional fingerprints left during these early years and how they influence adoptees throughout their lives. The wounded inner child not only holds on to pain and unmet needs, but also plays a significant role in shaping patterns of rumination and overthinking. These behaviours often begin in these formative years as the child's mind attempts to process unresolved emotions and unanswered questions surrounding separation, rejection, and grief. For adoptees, the lack of clear answers about their biological roots can leave a void, prompting their inner child to replay these experiences in an effort to make sense of them. This internalization of emotional wounds creates a feedback loop where the adoptee's mind repeatedly revisits feelings of confusion or loss, trying to resolve what feels unresolvable. Pre-verbal trauma further compounds this tendency. Without the ability to articulate or further understand their early experiences, adoptees may unknowingly carry these emotions into their later years. The mind, seeking emotional safety and control, may overanalyze relationships, behaviors, and even self-worth, further deepening patterns of rumination and overthinking. These patterns, rooted in the wounded inner child's attempts to find meaning and validation, can persist into adulthood unless addressed. Understanding this connection is crucial for adoptive parents, adoptees, and anyone supporting them, as it highlights the importance of providing safe spaces for emotional expression and healing. Welcome back. Healing. For me, when I hear that, and I understand the wounded inner child, I've done inner child work on myself, but it just takes it to another level when you, I guess, when I, as a biological mother, hear what you experienced and how the forced adoption era, there was no awareness around what you were going through, and the silence that you had to experience because you felt that if I spoke up, they may reject me also. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, definitely. I think that, the wounded inner child not only holds on to the pain of the unmet needs and the wounds, it's the way adoption was framed to us during that time. I was told that I was loved very much and chosen, and that my mother had loved me so much that she'd given me away. So those words, I suppose framed how I believed what love was.
And also how you behaved?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And in another episode, or another few episodes, we're going to dive into the survival patterns that are developed through this emotional fingerprint of an adoptee on how you survive.
That's right. I can look back as an adult and see that, patterns of rumination and overthinking started happening way back in childhood. Plus also, the people pleasing and morphing myself into a chameleon to fit into situations where I wouldn't be rejected or abandoned again.
So the chameleon within you, is that the right terminology, or the chameleon you become when you're not sure of a situation? So you'll sit back and
read a room,
yeah,
and work out how best to fit in, whether that's that I need to step up,
yeah,
or just go under the radar,
yeah,
so that I'm not rejected.
Okay,
yeah.
So these patterns develop very early. So please correct me if I'm incorrect, but this is how I visualize it and explain it. So there's a little child inside you, and it's not actually a child, but it's just the easiest way to say. So there's a wounded inner child that's taking on all of your feelings of rejection, abandonment, loss, longing, and, you know, the emotional umbilical cord tugs where you can feel me and you're like, oh, I can't tell anyone about this, that I am longing, and I'm sitting on buses and I'm looking for my mom and I'm looking for mirroring. So all those sort of things are happening. So the wounded inner child is, I guess, the vessel that pour it on me, pour it on me, pour it on me. I will hold this until you're ready to process it, to go through it, and you just go out there and live your life. This is, I know it's in very simple terms, and you become a chameleon, so you know how to live in all these different scenarios. Who you are at school, who you are at home, who you are with this friend, who you are with that friend, who you are with this relative, is all different people.
That's right, just enough, not too much, just flying under the radar.
Yeah.
And, you know, a wise woman once told me that we are every age that we've ever been. And
no matter what age we are.
That's right.
Yes. And sometimes we forget that. You know, I always think, oh, we're all 30. Like we all think in our head we're like 30. That's what I think. No matter how old you are 30. You know, in the way you look at the world, the way you do things, because I think your 30s are pretty good years. You know, you're a little bit older, you're starting to not care what anyone else thinks about you, and you're starting to come into your own and really like who you are. That's how I look at it. And I know everyone has a different age where they think that. The only thing is that your body is aging and that you're who you are within may not be.
That's right. And I know that, you know, the 8-year-old in me comes out quite often, the one that knew that, well, that started to believe that she wasn't enough, that she wasn't good enough to be kept, that she wasn't wanted, and that really desperately wanted her mother. She's still there.
Yes.
And, you know, some days I can see her clearly, and then other days I am still her.
Yes. Yes. So it's like I'm behaving, responding, reacting as that 8-year-old, slamming doors.
That's probably the teenager.
That's the teenager. Yes, you're right. That is the teenager. The slamming doors or the grunts. Or the grunts or the whatever. And of course, I'm pretty sure most of us can relate to that. Let's face it, we all were whatever age. So we don't even have to have children to remember what that age group is like as we experienced it. So to be able to, I guess, look at the wounded inner child and to look back at your parents who were not educated. I was going to say educated, but they weren't educated. They didn't have awareness, conscious awareness about the fact that you were longing, you were grieving, you were, where is she? And because she's not here, I have low self-worth.
That's right. And because the loss of you was never acknowledged. So the disenfranchised grief. And, you know, it's really hard to nurture that inner child and nurture what you've learned to silence.
Yes. So in saying that, that is an approach to start to go, because you have to go through it. Well, you don't have to. You can stay wounded for the whole life if you choose to.
But for me, I'm still learning to tend to that inner child.
Yes. So where is it the sadness? How do you feel about your inner child? Sad, happy, thankful, grateful?
I think it's really, at times I find it very difficult to tend to her because, you know, I am grateful that she's taken on everything that she has and allowed me to move through life and
function.
And function, that's right.
Hmm.
But there's also a lot of sadness for her.
Yes.
and what she has been through and had to carry alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's a locked box, a weight, a hole
That's right.
within you,
That's right.
and to be healthy, in my opinion, is to explore these things within, and it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's difficult. I've, taken that journey many times, and most people will realize that once you start to open up that lotus, it just keeps more and more little petals arrive for you to, okay, I'll now look at this and I'll now look at this. And I honestly feel that is our journey of life. And we will probably be looking at something until the day we pass, or as I like to refer to go on to our next adventure, which is why we chose to keep down here. That makes my life easier when I look at it from that perspective. And we all have our own perspective on what we think this life is. I like to think we're all in a movie. We're the director of our movie, and if we want to change the script, we can do so at any stage of our life. It's not easy to change the script, but when we do and we walk down that path, we normally find, well, that was a good script to rewrite, now wasn't it?
Well, that's right. It's finding the courage to take that
Yes.
one step, to make that one change.
Yes, yes.
And to shift the perspective of what we're looking at and how we're thinking.
Yes, I totally agree. And when adoptive parents, and I know that, we can't go back into the forced adoption era, but there are many adoptive parents now. And when they understand the possibility of their child's early experience creating a wounded inner child, it opens the doors to deeper empathy and understanding,
That's right.
which is one essential aspect of this, is recognizing the importance of connection with the biological roots. And I know it's not easy for adoptive parents to actually do that, but it's in the interest of their child.
That's right, because it's really hard when people around you don't understand the depth of what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. So how would you describe to the people who find it really hard to understand your trauma, what you've been through, what's the one way that you could find to describe your wounded inner child?
I think you brought up the analogy earlier that it's like tending to a garden. So I think it kind of feels like standing in a garden that's been neglected for years, and some parts are overgrown
Mm-hmm.
and others are bare.
Yeah.
And you don't have to fix it all in one day, but it's about tending to it and clearing that one patch, and I suppose bringing sunlight to it so that it can flourish and can be nurtured and tended into something beautiful.
Yeah, and I love that, because that's what it is, as I said, it's all in a dark locked box. And the more light you bring in, and it doesn't have to be all at once. And I think a lot of people, when they go, I need to look at my wounded inner child. Oh, no, 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 no. That's way too much. But if you take those baby steps and you just let a little bit light in, and then you go back, and then you cut, you know what I mean? It's whenever, like I was going to say each day, but each time you feel up to it, because after you do a process, sometimes it takes a little bit while for it to actually work through you. And remember, it's all about emotions, and emotions are energy in motion. So the emotion has to go through you, and doing little patches at a time is the easiest way for you to go through it. So you take a little bit, you experience what that is, then you let the emotions go through you, and then you go, okay, I'll just sit for a little while, I'll heal on this, I'll contemplate this, and then, okay, I'm strong now, I'll now do another little bit. I'll now have a look at this part of the wounds.
That's right. And it is tricky to navigate and to explain the trauma that happened before we had words. And often, well, it wasn't understood. So it's like
a
you said,
double
it's
whammy.
like the lotus. So we have to peel back one layer at a time
Yes.
and tend to that
Yes.
inner garden one layer at a time.
And just you saying that, it makes me think for the people who don't understand it and you know, and feel, oh, you know, you had a great life, all these sort of things. Maybe it's with them as well. It's one little thread at a time. I'll explain this to them. And then another time I'll explain this. Because if we, you know, if we do, I like to say, if we do a fire hose of information, it's like, whoa, just, you know, give me the little garden hose version at the moment. I can handle the trickle from that. And, you know, just don't give me that big fire hose blast. So, yeah, maybe that's for other people as well to explain. And I guess and that's what we're really doing on our podcast is we're just taking a little bit of information and sharing this, you know, which is all mixed up with our research, our lived experience and the whole lot of it, which is what we love to do. And that's why we show up.
That's right.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we talk about our next episode?
No, I just, you know, I wish others could see that the healing, you know, healing's not about blame. It's about awareness, understanding, and acceptance.
Yeah, it is. And it is acceptance. And you know, in everything you look about grief and loss, you know, you've got to come to acceptance.
That's
right. And acceptance is not easy, but when you do come there, life does become easier.
That's right. And our journeys aren't linear.
No, they're not. We go here, there, all over the place. So in our next episode, we are going to bring all the threads together of the emotional fingerprint of an adoptee, which is very exciting and giving a little bit of awareness and understanding to how when you understand the four interconnecting elements of the emotional fingerprint of an adoptee, that's how you can create a way for you to not only dive into each of the elements, but also for you to bring them together. And not only for you, but, you know, for all your loved ones and for people who support adoptees, it's for everyone to come to a place of healing, of love, healing, understanding, and understanding everyone's journey, which is what we're here to do, isn't it?
That's right. Thanks for joining us today.
Yep, and we look forward to seeing you soon.